Welcome to the We Grow Together podcast, where we believe that our collective growth is the key to unlocking our individual potential. I'm your host, Laura DiFrancesco, entrepreneur, corporate attorney, investor, and founder of Dean Street Law, Flourish Co-working Space, Ethereal Farms, Laura DiFrancesco, LLC, and a few more. In each episode, I'll be sharing solo insights and engaging in thought-provoking conversations with community leaders, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Together, we'll delve into inspiring stories, best practices, and tactical tips, all rooted in our philosophy that we grow together. Our mission is to support, educate, and celebrate billions of women and entrepreneurs in the pursuit of their dreams, embracing their most authentic self, and living a well-lived life. Join me as we explore entrepreneurship, lifestyle design, wellness, and a lifetime of learning. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or someone looking to design a life you love, this podcast is for you. Tune in to the We Grow Together podcast, because by sharing our stories and learning from one another, we can achieve more than we ever thought possible. Welcome back to the latest episode of the We Grow Together podcast. I am incredibly excited to be telling you all about the things from building a business from the ground up. As you know, I have more than 5 businesses of my own that I have been building steadily and swiftly in many different directions. And there's so much that it takes to build a business, but there's also so much that you can replicate from one business to another. And it's a process that I've really honed over time of building my businesses. So if you didn't know, I do have the course 60 Days to Launch Your Business. It's a course with over 14 hours of content. We also have, I think, close to 100-page workbook that goes with that as well. And then I also have Legal Foundations, which are the video library and guides related to starting a business as well as operating a business, and the startup bundle, which will legally assist you with starting up a single member limited liability company. So this is really a space you can see that we operate in, that I operate in specifically, not just from building my own businesses, but also sharing what I've learned along the way to help others build their businesses as well. It's something I'm so passionate about, making sure that we have equitable access to information, particularly to support women entrepreneurs, because I think that we talk about so many different things as women. Business and finance tend to be one of the things that we talk about less. And I want to demystify that. I want to make this information, particularly the legal aspects that are really hard to access, both from a financial perspective as well as knowledge perspective, and make that more accessible. So I'm really excited to chat today all about building a business from the ground up. We're going to be talking about idea generation and validation, and we're going to go quickly over each of these topics because you know that I can go so in depth. That's what we have the courses, the resources for, so that you can really gather more additional information. We have the Legal Crash Course for Business, and that's a free resource if you want to dive deeper into this. We're going to talk about creating a business plan, securing funding, different types of funding. We're going to go more in depth of this. And then we're also going to be talking about building your team, developing your product or service, marketing and launching your business, and overall what it takes to be really successful in that solid foundation that you want to build for your business. Because obviously that is going to be what helps it grow, what it is going to enable it to be a solid foundation for future growth, as opposed to something that's going to get you in trouble later on. I will say, if you learn and take away one thing from this, know that it is easier to do it right the first time than it is to fix a mistake down the road. It will cost you more than 10 times as much money, time, energy, resources to fix a problem than it will be to do it right the first time. So with that said, let's dive into idea generation and qualifying that idea. We've talked about this a little bit in prior episodes, but quickly, how I go into idea generation. First off, I think we all have our different styles of generating business ideas. And that's going to be, how do you take inspiration from the outside world, the external world, and how do you create something of your own from those ideas. So for me, I am constantly having a lot of business ideas. And the fact that I just own 5 businesses, more than 5 businesses, is somewhat of a miracle because I have business ideas all day, every day. And so for me, it's not challenging to come up with business ideas. I can look at a business and tell you 10 things I'd do differently to make it stand out, to make it be better. That's something that I just have naturally flowing. So some people, it takes a lot more to come up with a business idea. That's been something very natural. I'm constantly taking inspiration from the world, cross-pollinating ideas from one industry to another, taking ideas, flipping them on their head, imagining nothing existed, imagining there's no infrastructure, and what if I could just do things completely my way? What would that be? As a very opinionated person with a lot of ideas, I can tell you there's so many ways that I do things differently in all different facets of life and business. So I'm constantly exercising that muscle. And I do think that it is a muscle that you exercise. I do think that while I have a natural ability to constantly come up with business ideas, that it is something that I really dive into and really embrace about myself and continue to encourage in my life. And the way that I think that I continue to encourage that is, one, I have no qualifying, this isn't going to work, limiting beliefs that are hitting me when I have these ideas. And this is what I've talked about in terms of coming up with your life and what you want to do in your life. When I have an idea, I am not thinking of the 30 reasons it can't work. You will always be able to come up with the 30,000 reasons that something can't work. Who cares? If you want to do it and it's meaningful to you, you will find a way for those 30,000 reasons to not be an issue. And that doesn't mean it's going to be successful, but it does mean that if you really want to do something, you are fully capable of doing it. And I truly believe that. So that's one way that I really strengthen that muscle. Another way that I really strengthen that muscle is by getting it out of my head. I think if you're keeping your ideas in your head, you are limiting yourself to a tremendous extent, whether it's ideas for your business or your life or your to-do list. Get everything out of your head. Your head is not meant to keep the volume of information that we obtain, retain, and disseminate on a daily basis. Our brains are still catching up to the fact that we are living in the 21st century where communication is instantaneous and anything that you're doing, anything that's on your mind is more than plentiful. So I think that it is a bad idea to have all of your ideas in your head. Create a home for them. Whether that is, I have very organized notes on my phone. Also, I have documents and documents and documents of good notes. That's my note-taking app that I use for my iPad and everything. And then I also have, you should see my Google Drive. And it is, I would imagine, tens and tens and tens of thousands of documents in my Google Drive. You don't have to be that crazy, but get a home for your ideas, whether it's written, whether it's in your phone, whatever mode of communication or documentation works for you, get it out of your head. And it doesn't have to be a to-do list. It could be a sketch that you have, or just like bring it to life. Start bringing it to life and start breathing air into it and breathing life and energy into it. And then, so for me, once you have the ideas, that's fine. Okay, but what do you do with them? Which ones are the ones worth investing? And I really think that if you're trying to decide which ideas you should invest in, and I've said this in prior podcasts, is that you need to be so committed to it that those 30,000 reasons that it won't work don't matter to you. If you are not so committed to it, if you're not willing to wake up at 4 a.m., go to sleep at 4 a.m., if you're not willing to do all things that you need to do come hell or high water to make this thing work, I wouldn't even waste your time on it. Why waste your time on things that you don't care that much about? And so in every single one of my businesses, it's come hell or high water that things are working out, that things are going to materialize, that I'm going to bring it to fruition. That doesn't mean that it has to be brought to fruition today. I have phases of building that I'm constantly managing, especially because I have a whole enterprise and portfolio of businesses that I'm managing. Not every business is going full steam at all times and growing. Some of them are growing and then refining and then growing and then refining. Every one of them is at different stages. So you don't necessarily have to pour all of your energy into every one of your ideas. But in order to decide whether you should pursue that idea, it needs to be a come hell or high water idea, or else it's out. And then once you have your buy-in, then you have to start testing the idea. Is it profitable? Is it going to work? Are those 30,000 reasons why it's not going to work actually kind of valid? And I will say you can find an excuse for anything to not work, but I also think that it's a balance between what are you willing to commit financially, time, energy, resources, and what is the payoff going to be? And there's a lot that I'll commit for very little payoff. I don't get financially rewarded for a lot of the work that I do, and I am perfectly okay with that. I have big passion projects, one of those being the podcast. You don't always see the immediate return on investment, but I'm building something, and I know that the investments that I'm making, whether or not it works out, are worthwhile to me. And so that's kind of the decision making you have to make. Is it going to pass muster with others? And then it doesn't even matter to you whether it passes, if it makes money or not. Does it matter to you? Or are you satisfied with it being something that makes an impact? And I think it's amazing when we can align the two, that they make an impact and make money. But I think sometimes if you're making an impact, it takes a lot longer to make money. And sometimes if you're making money, it's not always making the impact that you want. And sometimes you just got to do a little bit of everything. Hence why I have 5 businesses. So I hope it's been helpful in a very short recap of what I do to think of ideas and go through the process of evaluating the idea. And then once I do that, I come up with a business plan. Now, this is something we go into so much detail in the 60 Days to Launch Your Business course, so I'll make it brief. But essentially, your business plan is your map, quest, directions of your business at a given point in time. And it is the research that you do to be able to make informed decisions. It is the positioning of your business within the ecosystem. It's really taking that idea and the 30,000 reasons it won't work and start it to demystify them and navigate them and create a strategy around them. Because if you have a strategy to navigate the world's going to be challenging. There's going to be challenges no matter what you do. No matter what business you start, there's still going to be 30,000 problems, right? And that's okay. I'm okay with that personally. And I think in order to be an entrepreneur, you should probably be okay with that too. It's not that there are issues out there. It's how are you going to navigate them and what are you going to do to position yourself for success? And how can you not just position yourself for success, but do so in a condensed time frame on a slim budget? And how can you make all of this stuff make sense, right? Your business plan is making it all make sense to you, to others, communicating it to your team, your investors, your customers. It's really solidifying and gelling. It's all the inner work that you need to do in your business to bring it to life. So we do have all of the instructions on creating a business plan in the 60 Days to Launch Your Business workshop or course, and our workbook as well. So if you're interested in that, for sure recommend checking that out. Let's get into securing funding. There's a lot of different ways that you can fund your business. So you can self-fund it. And self-fund it is when you're bringing your own capital to the table, whether that is through your assets, your hard assets, your cash, or you have lines of credit, et cetera, like that. All of that is going to be self-funding it. Now you can have, when you say, like, let's say your credit card or your letter of line of credit or your home equity line of credit or something like that, that is self-funding it, but you are also mixing that with debt, right? So you have to figure out what makes the most sense for you. Self-funding it is going to enable you to have the most control over the business, because if you're not bringing on investors, you don't have other equity owners, they don't have a say and control in the business, you do. I personally love self-funding. I have self-funded all of my businesses. This does take time. You're going to take a lot more time to realize your goals. Molly's hanging out with all of the turkeys if you're hearing them gobble gobble. It is going to take a lot more time to realize your goals and to scale than it would be if you brought on extra capital, because you're going to have so much more resources. With that said, everybody's going to have their own preference, and I am so biased. I really liked self-funding it in my experience. And I do recommend that everybody, even if you plan on fundraising and you want to scale, to self-fund. And the reason why is, or at least bring on investors or bring on debt to the smallest extent possible. You're going to fail in the first And I say fail in that, like, you're going to make mistakes, right? You are going to make a lot of mistakes, and you're going to make a lot of expensive mistakes. And I can tell you, the more money you're putting into a business, the more expensive your mistakes will be. And so it's good to get through the first couple years of business making mistakes without it costing you too much. And if you have a limited amount of budget, whether it's self-constrained or from small investors or a small loan or something like that, your mistakes are going to inevitably cost less because you only have so much to lose. And so I think if you're going to fundraise, I would do it after you've been in business for a little bit of time and you've made some mistakes, because you start to really get savvy around return on investment in your business and what's worthwhile to invest in and what needs to be staggered in investment, what needs to be invested in first and then next. And you really start to just understand cash flow in your business a lot better once it's been operating for a few years. If you want to go and fundraise from the get-go, I fully support it. If you want to fundraise at all, I fully support it. I'm an attorney. I represent clients who are fundraising on a daily basis, and I think it's an amazing way to scale. I just want to be very honest. I think if you do it too soon, it can really challenge and hinder your ability to stay in business, because you want to fail fast and fail forward and not fail to extinction. That's the goal in business, right? Fail fast, fail forward, do not fail to extinction. And funding and fundraising plays a component in that. So, as I mentioned, benefits are you are in full control with little to no outside influence. You do not need to share profits or have any decision-making input from others. You have quick access to funds without waiting for approval. Some disadvantages: it is a high financial risk. I am not going to lie. The pandemic cost me a lot. The pandemic cost me incomprehensible amounts. And that's okay to me. To me, it is cyclicality in business. I'm okay taking the hit. I will continue in business, and in business, that hit over a couple years is going to be a drop in the bucket. But I also set myself up financially to be able to take that hit, and that was why we've been able to successfully navigate the pandemic, the office space crisis, and so many other influences that have impacted our business. But you have to know, if you are going to self-fund, are you going to be resilient enough to weather the storms? It is limited capital, which might restrict your business growth, and then it may potentially strain your personal finances and savings. It has not been easy every single day for me to operate a business. There's been a lot of personal sacrifices that I've made, and it's stressful when it's all of your own funds. But I would personally find it less stressful making those initial mistakes. Mr. Black Kitty wants to join us. Mr. Black Kitty. I would personally rather make those mistakes on my own dime than someone else's, especially those first couple years. I really think that once you get a first couple years of experience under your belt and you know how to fail fast, fail forward, and not fail to extinction, then I would feel so much more comfortable using other people's money to scale growth. Discover the magic of Ethereal Farms, nestled in the heart of the rolling hills and draping forests of Chester County, Pennsylvania's wine country. Our luxury accommodations and tranquil landscapes provide the perfect escape from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Enjoy serene walks among meadows, cozy nights by the fire making s'mores, and unforgettable moments with our friendly farm animals. Plus, it's just next door to our sister farm, Wayvine Winery and Vineyard, where you can enjoy live music, food trucks, and estate-made wines, farm-to-table cocktails, and a curated selection of craft beers. You'll also have access to more than 1,000 acres of hiking. At Ethereal Farms, we believe in the power of nature to inspire and rejuvenate. Plan your getaway today and experience the serenity and charm that only Ethereal Farms can offer. The next item is family and friends. So family and friends are a wonderful source of capital for growth, and they can be investing as owners with an equity interest or debt. Molly's here as well. Do you want to see Molly? Hi, Molly. Say hi, Molly. Hi, Molly. So family and friends can be debt or equity. And the advantages are that it's potentially easier to secure family and friends funding than it may be to secure debt or other investors. You may not have to prepare as much. They have intrinsic trust in you, hopefully, and so it may be easier to secure funding. With that said, there's also some disadvantages, but to continue on with the advantages, because with family and friends, there's intrinsic trust and you're able to build a relationship with them. They may be more flexible on your repayment terms. So a lot of the family and friends fundraising that I assist my clients with, we structure as debt, where it's paid versus out of a percentage of the profit of the business, and it has a flexible repayment timeline, so it doesn't create a situation where it's going to impact their cash flow too significantly, but they still have that legal obligation to pay. So it's a little like equity, but with the benefits of it not costing the entrepreneur as much. Remember, as the entrepreneur and owner, it costs more to fundraise via equity than it does via debt, but you do have a lot less risk with equity than you do with debt. And then the other advantages is that they're bought into your business. They want to support you. They want to help you succeed, and they can help you to weather those storms. They can be someone to talk to. But the disadvantages is that you do have a close relationship, and there may be a hard line that you need to draw between family and business and friends and business, and it can be challenging to mix both. So if you do, you of course want to have incredibly good legal documents to document those investments and the repayment terms, whether that's debt or equity, to make sure that each party is honored, respected, and that there's something clear to turn to if something goes wrong, because you do want to make sure that you navigate those relationships well and that you have essentially a prenuptial agreement for that relationship. And that's what we consider your operating agreement or your loan documents and everything. They create the rules of the road for that relationship. Other disadvantages, of course, if you damage that personal relationship, if the business fails, it may damage that personal relationship. The lack of formal agreement can really lead to misunderstandings, and there may be potential for unrealistic expectations or pressure, because sometimes that family and friends money means just as much to them as it does to you, and can be very challenging for them to not get a return when they expect. And it's really hard to make sure that you're setting good expectations with your investors, whether they be via debt or equity. So, of course, have clear contracts to be able to document the relationship and communicate openly about the risks with the investment. And then also make sure to have as much professionalism and treat those investors just the same way as you would treat professional investors, to make sure that you respect that relationship and their interests while also operating your business and growing it. The next is loans. So you do have many different types of lenders. You have traditional conventional financing. This could be from larger banks, community banks, credit unions. They all provide capital. You also have the Small Business Administration, and there's also private lenders as well as your hard money lenders. So going through those in a couple different ways. So the traditional bank is going to have a structured repayment plan, and you will typically have access to significantly more capital generally than your friends and family may provide, unless you've got really wealthy friends and family. And then they do have very set established terms, as well as significant repercussions for not being able to meet those covenants, not just with repayment, but there's also often covenants about how much debt you can have in the business relative to the assets or income of the business. And then it is a great opportunity to build business credit. So if you have the ability to build business credit, that's amazing. With that said, not every bank will loan to a startup. And so this can be challenging with startups to receive funding, and it requires significant credit history and strong credit history for you personally, as well as it being the right industry for that bank and something within their credit lending box. Think of their box of what they're willing to lend to. Do you fit within that box? And there is a lengthy and rigorous approval process. it feels like you're in the Inquisition when they're asking you a billion questions, but that is necessary for them to underwrite the loan. So making sure that it is the right process for you and that you're working with the right lenders. Typically, you get a little bit of a preview, working with multiple lenders, what their rates are, what you can expect, and then you'll submit an application process once you select one or so banks that you would like to move forward with. It usually does require a fee, so typically you're not going to pay that fee if you're not interested in moving forward with them. And that regular interest payment can also stress your cash flow because you don't have that same flexibility that you may have with friends or family or equity. And so business is going to go up and down. You're going to fail fast and hopefully fail forward and not fail to extinction. But it does have a lot more risk when you have debt on the business, and it provides a lot more strain on the business. The SBA is loans that are provided by lenders that are backed by the SBA. So the Small Business Administration does not issue the loan, but they back the loan. And the advantages, they may have lower interest rates and longer repayment terms. The government backing reduces the risks for the lenders, and it is available to businesses with weaker credit histories. The disadvantage, it is a lot of paperwork and a lot of requirements. It's a very long approval process. Expect 60 to 90 days minimum, and there can be significant restrictions on how the debt may be used, how the funds may be used. So you want to make sure that you fit within the SBA requirements as well to make sure that you're eligible for it, and be prepared to go through that entire financial due diligence process with the lenders. The next are hard money lenders, private lenders. Private lenders may be small companies such as private equity funds or other funds that provide loans, mezzanine capital, or bridge loans or something like that. And then hard money lenders are lenders that provide capital at a very high rate and not quite as high generally as credit cards, but similar. And so you generally want to avoid hard money lenders because it is going to be very, very expensive for your business. Same thing with credit cards. You generally want to avoid credit cards, but may use it as necessary to provide cash as necessary and credit as necessary in your business. And then investors. So there are a lot of different types of investors, and you want to think through what are the investors that are going to make sense for you. So venture capital is investment firms that provide capital to investors, to investment firms that provide capital to entrepreneurs that are mostly startups in exchange for equity. And so the advantages are that you have access to larger amounts of capital, that you have, most of them include the mentorship, resources, networking, some other value add other than just funds. And it really does provide a tremendous potential for rapid growth because you're getting everything that you need or as close to everything that you need as possible in this fundraising process. And so you're not waiting for years to get the capital that you need to make the changes that you need to do to be able to increase demand, meet demand, everything like that. The disadvantages is that you lose equity and control of the business. You may not lose control of the business per se, but you may need to get additional approvals for certain actions. So typically, important investors, your most significant investors may have a board seat, they may have certain voting rights, you may not be able to do certain actions without them. Most likely, so venture capital, for the most part, is a minority investor, so it's not necessarily going to take the majority of the interests in your business. But with that said, it will take a certain amount of that capital, and it will also generally come with certain requirements of decision making as well and influence on decision making. And then in addition to that, there is a high expectation for fast growth and quick returns. And you have to know that there's only so much growth you can buy, and there's only so much you can invest to actually get your money back. If you think about real estate, I think real estate's an easy way to think about this. So you have a whole row of houses, and all those rows of houses are ranging between $200,000 and $300,000. And this is going on for miles. This is not like, the least expensive in the best neighborhood. This is the standard. And you want to put $750,000 of renovations into the property to make it $1 million property because you bought it at $200,000, you want to make it $1 million property, and you want to sell it for $1 million property, but all the other houses are 200, 300,000. There's only so much value that you can get out of your investments and your return on investments in real estate. And the same thing is the case for your investments in your growth. There are points of diminishing returns, and you're only able to fuel so much growth. And you may say, well, we're growing at X amount. Well, you can't just project that out into infinity. And sometimes it does work that way. And sometimes you actually do have, it continues to exponentially grow, but you can't guarantee that. And so you have to be very careful around expectations of fast growth and returns and what those conversations are looking like and how they're projecting out the financials and what they need for this investment to make sense. Because those are the financials that you're going to have to perform to, because those are going to be the standards that are set and the reporting that you're going to need to make as to whether you're hitting those benchmarks or not. So you have to know what the growth expectations are and whether you think that they're feasible and how you plan to approach those and how they think that they may be approached. And then in addition, it's going to be an intensive due diligence process. Just like with a lender, they have the same process of determining whether an investment is the right investment for them. And you have to make sure that you're doing that same process yourself, because it's not just they're determining whether it's the right investment for them. You need to determine whether it's the right investor and investor group for you. Discover Flourish Co-working Space, where your best ideas come to life in a lush, sustainable, and inspiring environment. Nestled in the heart of Westchester, Pennsylvania, Flourish is more than a workspace. It's a community that nurtures your growth. Whether you're an entrepreneur, creative, or professional, you'll find the perfect setting to thrive or host events. Come as you are, and let's grow together. Book your tour today and start flourishing. The next is angel investors. So angel investors are high net worth individuals who invest their own money in startups. They tend to be more flexible and take on more risk than traditional lenders, and generally also sometimes more than venture capitalists. And so there may also be a potential for mentorship and guidance, but just like with venture capital, you want to make sure you're having those conversations and you know around what you can expect. Some venture capital firms are built in like almost an accelerator model, and they want to be your mentor. They want to be there with you every step of the way. Other venture capital firms are not operating that way, and it's a more passive investment for them. So you want to know what the expectation is around them. Sometimes it can be more quick in decision making than venture capital. Venture capital is more of a structure, a business. They have people that they have to report to. They have to be meeting certain targets themselves. They have more structure in general over how many people need to decide that an investment is the right decision. Not all. Some venture capital firms are just starting out and they're smaller. Others of them have like a committee that you have to present in front of, or that they have to decide on after hearing your presentation to a certain member of their firm. So it may be more complex to get things done and just take a little bit more time. But for the most part, everyone's pretty invested in making sure that business is done well and done right. And so for the most part, you're going to get responsiveness. The other disadvantages is that it's similar loss of equity and control. Same with venture capital. It's likely going to be minority, but that still is something. And then they might have less capital to offer than venture capital. It depends on their wealth and their status and how much they're investing and how much they want to invest in this particular investment. But with that said, there may be less capital available than with venture capital firms. And then there a lack of rapport or alignment with the investor's mission and vision. And that's going to be really critical because they're more selective, generally more selective, less broad of investor than venture capital. It really has to align. You really have to have great rapport with them and alignment with their vision. The other options for fundraising are crowdfunding. And so there you're going to be raising small amounts of money from a large number of people, whether debt or equity. And it could be even just from the sale of products. purchased ahead of time. So there's a lot of different platforms for this. There's Kickstarter, Indiegogo, GoFundMe. There's tons of different platforms. I Fund Women. All of them are able to have crowdfunding. There are a lot of compliance requirements, so you have to make sure that you're doing this the right way, but it will give you access to greater audience and customers. It will enable you, if you're doing the pre-sales, to validate that business idea through public interest and support, and give you a lot of great marketing opportunity and exposure during your fundraising campaign. With that said, the disadvantages, it does require significant effort on your part because you are leading that promotion of that campaign and getting everybody on board. You can't just expect to list it to a platform and have all of these people fund you and then you don't have anything to do. You're in charge of making that campaign successful. And there are platform fees, payment processing costs, and everything associated with that. In addition, there's a little bit of publicity around it. So if you're nervous about how it might go and you don't want to be so public about your fundraising, how much you're fundraising, you have to be careful about that. All of these are just a few of the many options for fundraising. There's also private equity, hedge funds, and numerous other ways for fundraising. I will note, though, all of them, from friends and family to angel investors to venture capital, all of them are extremely legal intensive, and you absolutely must have a lawyer to be doing any sort of fundraising. It is one of the biggest mistakes that you can make is to get involved in an area governed by the Securities and Exchange Commissions and the securities laws of each state and not be well represented. This is something that we do at Dean Street Law. If you would like to schedule a complimentary consultation, please feel free to do so. And I'm so excited to share that I am joining Jack Relke on the $1 Million Ventures, and we do have the $1 Million MBA that is coming soon, as well as the $1 Million Ventures that will dive deeper into this. So if you want to learn more all about venture capital, that is the focus of the $1 Million MBA and a big part of the $1 Million Ventures as well. So if you want to dive deeper into that, we will have plenty of resources. Some of the tips that I have for securing funding that we go through in those programs are preparing a compelling pitch, building a strong business plan, networking with potential investors, demonstrating your business's potential for growth and profitability. And some of the questions that we often receive are, what are the key elements of a successful pitch to potential investors? And how can you create a successful pitch and compelling pitch deck? So it's so important to understand who the investors are and what they want to invest in. And you have to understand who's even worth pitching before you try to prepare a pitch, because understanding their investment criteria and making sure that you're pitching the right people is going to be infinitely more important and the most important thing that you can do. Then once you know that you are pitching the right people, then you have to know that you are pitching them the right things. But the most things that people care about are, what are the financials? What is the return on the investment? Break down, what is your cost of goods sold? What is your profit per item, profit per sale, profit per service? Really minutia in the detail. And then how is this investment going to fuel growth? What are the stages that you need to be at? What else do you need? How long is this money going to last? Where does it go to? All things that we dive much deeper into in the $1 Million Ventures and $1 Million MBA that Jack and I will be discussing on a future podcast that I'm really excited to share with you. And then other questions are, what does it mean to bootstrap a business, and what are the advantages and challenges of this approach? Generally, bootstrap means self-funding, but it can also mean that you are just getting as scrappy as you can be to fund your business, whether that's getting the minimal amount that you need to just make it minimally viable and get that growth that you need. So bootstrap is just saying you're scrappy and that you're doing it financially in a minimalist way to be scrappy, to be able to get your business running without an intensive amount of capital needed to do so. And then what are some strategies for effectively bootstrapping your business? I'm constantly evaluating how I spend my time, money, energy, resources, team members, all of the things, and what I'm putting it towards, and is it revenue generating? And that doesn't mean it has to be immediately revenue generating, but it should make sense. There are things that I invest in that aren't revenue generating, but they are not the first things that I invest in. I make sure my companies are healthy and whole, and that I am focusing my energy, time, and resources on what will drive the business forward. And then when should entrepreneurs consider seeking external investment for their businesses? As I mentioned, I am a huge proponent of self-funding initially, or getting the minimally viable investments that you need, whether it be debt or equity. The reason is, like I said, it's important to fail fast, fail forward, and not fail to extinction. And so I do believe that you should be in business for at least a couple of years before seeking funding, because you need to really get your grasp on your business and be able to be a good steward of not just your own funds, but others as well. You're going to be reporting, you're going to be responsible for it. It would be a lot more stressful if you had to experience those first couple of years with someone looking over your back and you reporting to them on your success. People do it all the time, and I fully respect people who do. I'm just saying, from my perspective, that's what I would recommend. Building your team is the next item. This is something I'm so passionate about. I built my dream team on paper before I even had a business. Like almost 10 years before I had a business, I had built my dream team on my laptop in various documents. I wanted this person to do this role and this person to do this role. And guess what? It has come true. So I really do believe that you should identify the key roles in bringing your business to life and seeing who you would need on your team or what skills you would need. And then you may be the person filling all of those roles initially, but the goal is to really understand at what point can your business sustain bringing on others and who would be the best people to bring on in those roles. And then hire the right people, making sure that you have the right team members. I am very cognizant of the fact that I am not the best person to hire on our team because I am so overly optimistic. I love people. I love to see their potential. I love to cheer them on. And I recognize that I'm not the right person to hire because you do need a certain amount of realism that I just don't have, that I do have, but I have a lot of challenge with. So I do recommend making sure that you have systems and processes in place. I have descriptions. I have hiring criteria. I have hiring questions, template documents for everything hiring, but I do have other team members on my team hire because that is not my strong suit, and that's okay. Leadership and team management. One of the questions we were asked is, how can you offer advice, or what advice can you offer on leading and managing your team effectively? I am all about systems, processes, approval levels, and really creating good communication, solid standard operating procedures, and good expectations across the board. And then kind feedback, kind, supportive, growth-oriented feedback, and making sure that you have the right people on your team. I'm very clear that we are high performers, we are exceptional people, we do exceptional work, and that is our standard. But it is not that I expect you to be a robot. It is not that I expect you to be perfect, but we do excellent work product. And we have systems and processes in place for each of our business for that to be the case. The next item is developing your business product or service. So I think this is a really iterative process. You test it, you launch it, you get feedback on it, and you refine it. We go into this in more detail in 60 days to launch your business, but you really want to outline for yourself, what is that process of building this service or product, and what do I need to get it from ideation to launch? And then when you get closer to launch, you're going to figure out, what do you need to just be able to open the doors. It doesn't necessarily, you're not going to necessarily have all the things on your to-do list done. What needs to be done? What is your punch list for your business to get it open and operating? And then it is an iterative process based on feedback. I am constantly asking my customers and reviewing, what do my customers like? What questions were they asking? How can I anticipate their needs? How can I better position my business to better serve my clients and customers? That is going to be an incredible way to grow. I say we are an everyday evolution of ourselves, and that is something I'm very proud of, and that it is a core value within our team as well. The next is marketing and launching your business. Again, something we go into incredible detail in the 60 days to launch your business course. But you definitely want to create a marketing strategy and understand who your ideal customer is, how you get in front of them, where they congregate, and how you can be most impactful in investing your time, energy, and resources into marketing, and how you can make that as impactful as you can. Is your business going to thrive from word of mouth? Is it going to be a really long customer journey for Dean Street Law. Sometimes we're talking to people for 2 years before they become a client. But then for Flourish, most of the time we're talking to somebody for a couple months, and same with Ethereal Farms. So what does that customer journey look like? And what does that customer acquisition journey look like? My chickens are over here. Hello, babies. I think everybody's saying that it's time to wind up the chat, Mom. Hello, babies. I know I love you, babies. So, plan your launch, plan your marketing strategy, make sure your product is market ready. Do not rush. Quality is so important in business. Do not rush. Make sure you're market ready, and make sure that you have a process for gathering feedback and implementing change in your business. We are always looking over how did something go? How can we make it better? And build that presence over time. Build it before you even have your business live. I think that's something that most people miss out on that I don't want you to. And then be very interactive. It is community-based. Business is community-based, and you can't be doing your own thing in a silo and expect people to care about it. You need to be in front of people and figuring out how you're going to connect with them and drive your business. And then you have to launch your business, get out there in the world, grow, scale, and do all of the incredible things in the world, like live your life, grow your business, enjoy yourselves. I hope this has been helpful. I have so many things going on here. We have kitties over here. We have the chickens. We have a beautiful sunset over here. So I feel like we have had such a good conversation. I am so proud of us. And thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the We Grow Together podcast. I hope it was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to share with your friends, tag people, tag me at Laura M. DiFrancesco, and be sure to share your questions and episode requests on the next post that I have on Instagram at Laura M. DiFrancesco at Flourish Westchester. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the We Grow Together podcast. I hope today's conversation inspired you, provided valuable insights, and brought you closer to your more authentic self. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to give a 5-star review and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Also, be sure to screenshot and share on social media whenever you can. Sharing your support of the podcast really helps us to grow and continue making episodes just like this. You can see all of the links in the show notes for more access to guides, all of our social media information, resources, how to connect with us. And I hope that you join us in the next episode where we'll be sharing more innovative ideas, stories, all with our philosophy that we grow together. I'll see you in the next episode.